Hello and welcome again to the Toolkit for Traders YouTube channel, where we give you the tools for trading success. And we're back on with our sixth lesson of the Code Your Own EA's MQL4 programming tutorial series. The sixth lesson, and we're starting to get real juicy today because we're looking at indicators, which are the cornerstone of most expert advisors, and most strategies use some kind of indicator to enable them to take trades, to understand how the market is working. So that's what we're going to look at today, how you can use indicators. So broken down, it is indicator time, and we're going to look at how we can use the pre-built indicators, which come packaged with the MetaTrader platform. We'll be looking at using inputs to make the EA more customizable, and we'll be changing our EA that we've been building along the way through the lesson so far, so that rather than giving a spread warning, it's going to give us some kind of notice or alert to change to a signal from that indicator, and we'll do that in the meta editor in real time. So quote for today's lesson is from Marty Schwartz, who is a famous technical analyst. I think he's in the one of the books, I can't remember off the top of my head, that I've read, but he said this anyway: "I always laugh at people who say I've never met a rich technician. I love that. It's such an arrogant, nonsensical response. I used fundamentals for 9 years and got rich as a technician." And I think Marty's just referring to the fact that there's people, you tend to get two camps or maybe three camps when it comes to Forex trading. You'll have the fundamentalists, you'll have the technical analysts that use the indicators, and then you'll have the price action traders who think they know everything. So we're looking at using indicators now, and now that you are familiar with using functions, you will find using indicators very easy. Because indicators use functions, and so this will solidify your knowledge. If you're still feeling a bit shaky with it, by using the indicator functions, you'll start to get used to it. MQL4 comes with a number of built-in inbuilt technical indicators that are each accessed with their own functions. Those functions start with the prefix, not suffix, as I've written there. The prefix I, and it's sort of written like this. So we've got some examples here. So for moving averages, it's IMA. For RSI, it's IRSI. For MACD, IMACD. For Bill Williams fractals, turning points, I fractals. Parabolic SAR is I SAR. So you can see the pattern with them. They all start with I and then have a name afterwards. You can find them all at the web address there, which I'll put a link to in the description below. For the indicators in the MQL4 documentation. So a typical line of code for using an inbuilt EA looks like this. So this example, we're using the MACD inbuilt indicator, and the MACD is going to return to us a double. So it's going to return to us a number with a decimal place. You can see here we are going to create a variable that we are going to call the MACD, so we can use this MACD value. It's going to have a number with a decimal place in it, and that's what this is going to return. So IMACD is the function name. So we open the function with open brackets. First thing we need to put in is the symbol, the pair that we're using, which in this case is Euro USD, and you'll notice that this is in between speech marks because symbols are written as text, as strings. We then have the time frame that we want the MACD to be applied to, which is we've used here period underscore M15, and this is a enumerated value. It's actually an integer, but the MQL4 platform has some integers pre-stored in there for you. So this integer value I think is actually the number of seconds in 15 minutes, but rather than writing that and calculating that out, you can just use period M15 for the period. We've then got the three typical values that you have for MACD, for the standard settings for MACD. which are the 13, 25 and the 9, which are the settings for the 2 moving averages and then the slowing moving average. And we've also got here, you can differentiate again between the different prices. So you could use price open, price high, low, but in this, or you could use the median, I believe, as well. But most of the time we use price close. And again, this is very similar to period M15. It's actually an integer, but it's pre-stored variable in MQL4, which refers to the price close. So that's a bit easier for us to understand if we write it like this rather than integer like 0, 1, 2, or 3. The last two, and I'll cycle through these because I did actually put the names. So you've got the function name, the symbol input, the time frame input, your indicator period inputs, the price data input, and here we've got what indicator line we want. So as you know, with MACD, there are more than one line. There's 2 lines in the MACD, so you have to select which line you want the data for. In the main MACD line is valued as 0 because most lists in MQL4 start with 0 and work upwards from there. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Rather than starting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, they usually start as 0. So 0 is the default, which is the main MACD line. If we were to put 1 in there, we would get the signal line. And the last value on there, sorry, I haven't put 1 on here, but the last value 1 I've put here. 0 is which bar we want. So 0 would be the current bar, but as you know, the current bar tends to move. It's not, the candle hasn't yet formed, and certainly the closing price has not yet formed. So if we're to use if we use the 0 value, the current bar, it would change every tick. By using the last bar, we only get the close price that's stable and finished. So you can see we go with 0 would be the current price, so we go back to the last bar, 1, and then you can go further back by going 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll cover that in a bit more detail as we go through the course, but that's basically what you will see and how you can use a indicator in the code. So what we'll do now is we'll go over to the meta editor and we'll use a practical example to help solidify what we've seen there and hopefully show you how you can generate some trade signals from using a inbuilt indicator. So we're back here on our code that we got to from the last lesson. I'm going to start there and I'm going to save this as lesson number 6. Change the name, and what we're going to do in this lesson is we're going to, instead of using spread to change our comment line, we're going to use an indicator to change those values. So as we said before, we want to get the value of an indicator. So typically you're used to seeing lines when you work with indicators. I'm sure when you've seen them on charts, you've seen lines, and all lines is the line drawn between coordinates between values at each bar. So that's all it is, and when you call an indicator forward, you call the value at each of those. So although you're not working with lines, you're working with the coordinates underneath. So for this indicator, what we're going to do, and we'll spell it out exactly here. So we're going to get rid of this stuff, but rather than get rid of it, I'm just going to comment it out because we might find that useful. So I'm going to use the comment brackets, and I'm just going to comment that out so that now we still have our current spread. We still have, in fact, we can comment out that as well. We still have all of this, but we're just not going to use it for the moment. We'll leave it there. We might use it in the future, but we'll leave it there for now, uncommented, which means it's commented out and the computer's not going to run it. But what we do want to use now is we want to create some values with indicators, and I'm just commenting out the whole thing as I'm reading it. I'm thinking I should do the whole thing. So I'm going to use this, probably one of the simplest kinds of indicators in MQL4 and in MetaTrader, because it only has one single line. Rather than talking about different lines at the moment, we'll just concentrate on an indicator with a single line. So I'll just jump over to my chart and we'll load it up so you know what it looks like. So I've just got a chart here, and we want a trend one, and I'm going to look at an oscillator, in fact. We'll go with momentum, and you can see here the momentum indicator as an oscillator underneath. I don't know that many people that use the momentum oscillator, but very simply at 14 it takes and the price difference over 14 days, and that gives the value. It does a calculation there, which means it ends up in and around 100. And what you have to know about it is, if I drop on here a line on the actual chart, so we open up the indicator here, I'm just going to put a level at 100, because the traditional way to use this indicator is if you if the indicator goes from below the 100 line to above the 100 line, you've got a long signal, and vice versa. So you can see here we were below, we went above, so that would give us a long signal, which ran to about here. So might have been a profitable trade, we don't know. And vice versa, a short trade, you can see here we were above the line, we went below the line there. So nice trade till about here, it took us out and then got back in. So the momentum indicator is a trend indicator, and you can see it did pretty well when the market was clearly trending from here to here. It will do badly in times like this, where you've got a lot of noise and range bound activity in the market. You're getting a lot of signals there, which are going to cost you some money, certainly some commissions. But anyway, that's the basics of how the momentum indicator works. So we're going to use that in our EA today. So first thing we want to do is we need to get the value of the momentum indicator. So we're going to get the current value, and when I say current, I mean the last close value of it. So the current, I'm going to call it current momentum, and it's going to be a double type. Most indicator variables come back as doubles, and we need to get the value for the current momentum. So we do I, capital M, and you can see it comes up as I momentum. It's inbuilt, and when we press the open brackets, it gives us the information that we need to put into there to get it. Now, one thing you can do, and a neat little trick, is if you press F1 whilst you've got the momentum highlighted, I momentum, the meta editor will actually bring up the reference for that indicator, which is really useful because you can use that when you're writing your code, and it tells you exactly how it works. So it calculates the momentum indicator, returns its value. You can see it returns a double, which we put here, and it's asking for symbol, time frame, averaging period, applied price, and the shift, which is the number of bars we want to go back in time to collect the data. So we are going to, we'll use this, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep that there, and we'll have that by the side as we work to reference on. So the first thing we need to put in is a symbol. Now you can put in Euro USD, that would work if it matched a symbol in your watch list. But rather than that, what I'm going to do is we can use the inbuilt variable for symbol. So if you use the underscore and then write symbol as I have there, it will, the MQL terminal, and we'll put the current symbol that you put the expert advisor onto, we'll put that into that variable. So that will refer to, if I put this onto the pound, it will return the pound in there, and if I put this on the euro, this will be Euro USD. So really easy means you can put this on any symbol and it will work. Second thing we need is a time frame, and again there's another neat trick. We could use period, and you can use any of these values here to set a specific time frame if you want to hardwire a time frame into your indicator. But another thing you can do, very similar to symbols, you can do underscore and you can write period, and it will give you the time frame for the whatever is the current time frame on your chart. So if you're on the M15, you put this EA on there, it will put the M15 in on there. So it means you can work, this EA will work on any time frame. So now we've got the period, not to be confused with the underscore period, which refers to the time frame, but this is the period for the actual indicator. So when you go to the chart, you can see that the period for the momentum indicator on this case was 14. So we will put 14 in there as the period, and applied price, as I said in the previous example, there the example is you've got the close, high, low, median, open, typical and weighted. I'm just going to stick with the basics and go with the close price. And we want the current, and as I said before, I want the last close price of the current momentum, and we are going to take that and put a semicolon to end that line. So this means that when this code runs, we'll create this variable. At every tick, we'll create this variable called current momentum, and it's going to run this function with these inputs, and it's going to give us a value for what the momentum was at the close of the last bar. Now that's really good, and so that value at the close is going to go into this variable here, because this is what this will return. Excellent. So we've got that. Now, as you know, when we're looking at the momentum indicator, we're looking at whether it's above or below 100 as our trigger for EA. So we're going to have another one in here. I'm going to call it double, and we're going to give this threshold. I'm going to call it threshold, and I'm going to set that to be 100. And so that's going to be our threshold, which is the threshold for the momentum indicator. So now we can go and put in our if statement. So very similar to how we did below, we can say if, and you can see it below, the current momentum is greater than the threshold. We are going to put in the comment line, and we could take our, we're going to say comment, so we use the other function that we used before, comment, and we're going to say in there, go long. Okay, so very simple. Let's get our attention. We're saying go long. Now we're going to use the else if. So we're going to put in another if statement. So if the current momentum is above the threshold, which is 100, we're saying go long. And if the current momentum is less than, so we're using that operator there, the threshold, we are going to go short, or we're going to tell ourselves to go short. We will look at making this more like alerts and things like that in the time to come, but I don't want to make this video too long, so I'm just going to stick with putting it in the comment field at the top of the chart, and we're going to say go short. And well, I think we're done there. Yeah, that looks good. So we've worked out what the momentum is, we've worked out a threshold, and we're going to go long or we're going to go short. And I'll click compile and see how many errors we get, and we got no errors. Yay! So no errors down there, so we're good to go, and put this on our chart. So if we go on to our chart now, and we can load up our expert advisors, and you can see I've got in here, and hopefully I renamed it. So I'm just going to click refresh because I can't see it. So I've got now my MQL tutorial lesson 6 on here. I can drag that onto the chart. You see my inputs. I've only got the inputs and the max spread, but we'll change that in a moment. We'll click OK, and we should. Let me just go view. Let's have the terminal initialized. We've not got any comment here. Maybe because the market's closed at the moment. What we can do is we can use strategy tester, load up number 6, and we'll do a very short visual backtest. So I'm going to start that, and you can see now on the visual backtest it is working. So it's saying go short, and I'm sure if the market turns up it will say go long. We can bring the indicator on here, but you get the point. I want to cover some more stuff before we do that, so we'll not go through that. You can see that's changed now to go long, so it's working. That's good. We can get back to what we were doing. So we now have a few things in here which we want to change. So we want to be able to make the EA a little bit more customizable rather than have to hard code some things in here. And we did use our spread value in here, and we don't actually need that, so we can just comment that out again as we did before. But now we can add our own inputs for this EA. So we're going to use, we want to be able to set the period for our momentum indicator. So we'll have an input. It's going to be an int type, so you know it's going to be int type. So you can see over here in the reference, the period for the averaging period for the momentum indicator is an int type. You can see that there in the reference. So we're going to make an int variable, and we're going to call this momentum underscore period. It has to be one word, so you can join it together with a underscore if you wish. And we're going to set a default value to be 14. So the first time the user puts this EA onto their chart, it will have a default value of 14 unless they change it. So now we need to go into our code, and where we have the period, so rather than having 14, we're going to change that now to our new input variable. So we put momentum period in there, and that means that if we change that in the input tab, when we put the EA on, it will use that value. And the other thing we might want to change is we might want to have the threshold changed. Not sure of a reason, but why not? Let's change it. So again, you can see I'm going to actually make this a double, because this is the threshold is, we're comparing this double to this double. If you look, current momentum and threshold have been compared. So those two, so I'm going to try and keep those as the same type. So I'm going to change that to double, and I'm going to call this the momentum underscore threshold, and I set this a default value as 100. So you can see again how that would be used, and here again we've got the threshold is equal to 100. So rather than it being like that, we would have to change the 100 to our new input variable, which is momentum threshold. And you can see if it is all working, you will get a slightly, I don't know what you call that, brown color for your input variables like your peers, so you know that they're connected by that way. Let's click compile, and what we'll do now is we just go back over to the chart, and we'll just stop that, and we'll go over to our main here. We'll remove what we had before, and we'll just drag and drop the lesson 6 back on here again, and you can see in the inputs tab now we've got two values. So now we can actually set the momentum period to be a different value, and you can also set the threshold. I'm going to keep that at 100. Now you'll notice it doesn't change the indicator that's currently on there, so if you want the indicator to display that, you need to make sure you change the value for that as well, so that it matches up. And we can also now as well run the back test as we did before, but nothing's really changed on there other than the inputs, so we won't do that just now. So just to recap, what we've done with our EA this time is we've now taken the input from a indicator that's inbuilt to the MetaTrader platform. We've used input variables to make that those indicator values variable. We've compared the momentum to a threshold, and we've now changed our comment line to different values depending on where the current momentum is in regards to that threshold. So we're back in presentation mode, and I just want to go through a couple of things, further theory, just to reinforce some of the things which we've spoken about in today's lesson. So if you remember the example from earlier, and also from which we didn't actually use in the meta editor, but you remember this the example we had where I said that you can choose the line we want, and if you look in the documentation for indicators, you'll see these lines. They're not referred to as lines; they're referred to as buffers, and buffers is a list of data that MQL stores. So the MACD indicator stores 2 buffers or 2 lines, and you have to choose which one. So you need to know a little bit about buffers. So indicators can have up to 8 buffers or 8 lines. So that's the maximum number of lines that an indicator can have without drawing them manually on there. As I said, buffers are lists that store the values of each bar. So as I say before, the values will be starting at the current bar, and as your number goes up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you're going back along your chart to the left for that value. And those values are then connected together like a scatter plot, really. They're like your X and Y values. So the bar number is your X values, and the value in that buffer is your Y value. And you can then, therefore, you can choose which buffer you want to choose using that variable. So if you look into the documentation for an indicator with more than one buffer or line, like for instance the MACD, the relative vigor index, or the stochastic, they all have 2 and they're inbuilt, and you can see that the documentation tells you which lines they refer to. So you can see here mode main. So you can actually write in your indicator rather than writing 0 here, you could write mode main as I have written period M15 here, or you could write mode signal. You can also use 0, 1. They all refer to the same thing, so that's totally up to you. I would encourage you actually to not do what I've done here, but to write mode main and mode signal, because it will make your code more readable. So you can see the documentation is the place to go if you're trying to understand, certainly for the inbuilt indicators, which line you're referring to, and you can see which they are there. So for a more complicated indicator like the Ichimoku, for which I've built an EA for, you can see on my page, you've got the values again, which are the numbers, but you've also got the mode. So you can write mode. If you write mode underscore, then these will come up and you can choose which ones you want. But again, you can see you've got 5 buffers. So these are 5 different lines that you can choose. So you need to make sure you get the right buffer when you're using the EA. If the EA only has 1 line, it won't ask you for this variable. It won't have a buffer input, so you don't need to worry about it, as we saw when we used the momentum indicator. So I hope that was informative for you. I hope you're excited that we're now starting to finally use indicators, and you can see how easy it is once you understand how functions work to use indicators in your code. In the next video, we are starting to get to the real juicy bit where we're going to use the order send function to open a market order. We're going to keep hold of that order with our order tickets, and then we're going to look at closing our orders, and EA that we're going to write next time, I'm going to deliberately write with a problem in, which we're going to solve in the lesson after that. So by now you know what to do. If you have any questions, drop it in the comment section below. I'll answer as many as I can, but feel free to help each other out too. You can also join the conversation at the Toolkit for Traders forum, where you can ask questions on this forum post, and even post code that you want me to have a look at, or you just want to boast about how well you're doing. Maybe you've written today's code but you've used a different indicator like the MACD or the RSI just for fun, just to test out what you can do. Put this date in for your diary as well, the 25th of February. I am going to drop another EA on the channel, but this time I'm going to write one live from scratch. I'm going to write an EA. So I want you to put lots of likes onto this video if you want me to do that, and also if you feel like it, give me a strategy, a simple strategy that you want to see me code in MQL4, and I will pick one for that Thursday, the 25th of February, and I'm going to code it live, hopefully in about 2 hours, and I will put the video on the YouTube channel as well, so that you can come back and watch it anytime. And if you like this video, again, you know what to do. It's really, really nice to see lots of people liking and subscribing to the channel. I'm really encouraged by how many people have already been really positive about it so far. It makes me want to do more. So please, if you are watching, if you do think this is good, send some encouragement over and you know what to do. But other than that, I hope you like this 6th lesson in the MQL4 programming series. Keep well and keep safe.